Hello everyone and welcome to the live Q&A with me, Professor Michael Scott. It is the 8th of October. How did it get that far into October already? And I hope that you guys have been sheltering well from the downpour of rain that we've been having in the UK, at least for the last couple of days and over last weekend. And if you're in other parts of the world, that the weather has been more kind to you. I've got some friends at the moment who are based out in Corfu, and they're telling me about their morning swim that they're going for before breakfast, which of course is not making me at all jealous at all. So welcome, thank you so much for taking this half hour, as we do every couple of weeks, to indulge ourselves in the ancient world and all things ancient. And thank you, of course, for all your fantastic questions that you have been sending in and that we're going to get to in a second. But of course, the first thing we must do is that this is prize week. So every month we look back at the questions that I've been able to answer with you over the last month or so, and we think back on what was the most kind of thought-provoking and exciting question that we answered, and that person gets a prize. Hello, Rosie. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you to you all for joining in as well. So I've been looking back through the questions that we've answered over the last month. There's been some absolutely fabulous ones coming in from lots of different parts of the world. But I think this time, just pipping it to the post amongst a series of excellent contenders, was Amy Logalbo asking about how do people with physical disabilities get around in classical times, and that was motivated by her seeing how Pompeii is trying to make itself more negotiable for people, particularly in wheelchairs, to be able to get around the archaeological site. So absolutely brilliant, Amy Logalbo. Please do get in touch with us either via the Facebook page or via email, michaelscottacademic@gmail.com, and we will get a prize winging its way to you, which will be a copy of my book Ancient Worlds, or indeed, if you've got young'uns around, we can have a copy of my book Life in Ancient Greece. So do let us know what you would prefer and any dedication you'd like written in the book from me as well. Thank you so much indeed to everyone for your questions coming in, and do of course keep them coming in. Now, I have one more favour to ask of you all before we head on to today's questions. And as you may have seen on the Facebook page, we put out a plea because a year or so ago we got hacked with our old Facebook page, and we lost it, and we had to start a fresh new Facebook page. Now, that old Facebook page we did actually manage in the end to get back from the hackers, but we decided to continue with the new Facebook page, and we would like to merge these two Facebook pages so that everyone's there in one place. The difficulty is that Facebook does not allow us to do this until we have a certain number of likes on the new page versus the old page. There has to be more on the new page than on the old page. So we have a mission for you all this week. We are 260 likes away from being able to merge the pages and bring the 4,500 followers that are still on the old page, despite all our efforts to get them to move over to the new page, to be merged into the new page. So we need you to make sure, please, everyone, if you're watching these Q&As, if you have friends who follow the page, please make sure that you have not only followed the Michael Scott Facebook page, the new Michael Scott Facebook page, the Professor Michael Scott Facebook page, but please make sure that you have also liked it. And bizarrely, followers doesn't help us merge. It's all about likes. So please make sure you have liked as well as followed the page. Then encourage everyone you can possibly find to, at the very least, like the page, if not follow it as well. And then fingers crossed, if we can get those extra 260 likes, we can then merge the pages and all be one happy family together. We are on the new page, Karen. This is the new page. I am broadcasting from the new page, the Professor Michael Scott page. Don't worry, if you go to the old page, it has old Facebook page written across the kind of profile photo on the top. But what we need to be able to do is have more likes on the new Facebook page than on the old Facebook page, which we've been running since 2014, so that we can merge the two. So everyone, that is your mission for this week. Make sure you've liked the new Facebook page, and please make sure that you tell everyone to like the new Facebook page as well. Share it as much as you possibly can. It would be hugely appreciated. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time. So, brilliant. We've got some great questions to be getting onto here, and also tons of announcements and exciting things going on. So despite the sort of news of increasing possible restrictions and lockdown, the classical world is going crazy online, and there's lots for you to be getting involved with. Some questions that came up live from last time that I didn't get a chance to answer. Karen, thank you very much. Mission understood. Your mission, yes indeed, Karen, if you choose to accept it, is to go out there and bring likes back so that we can merge these pages. So Dawn Adams asked on the last live Q&A, and it was a question I didn't get a chance to answer. If you could ask 5 people from Greek and Roman history to dinner, who would you pick? I love these kinds of questions. I think this is a really interesting one. It'd be interesting for you guys to send in your thoughts as well, kind of to the Facebook page, so that we can put a sort of top dinner table party together. But I guess my question would be, Dawn, do these people all have to be real, or can they be some historical, some mythical? Do they all have to have been living at the same time, or can I kind of morph people from across the vast spaces of the Greek and Roman worlds together to bring them to one super kind of dinner party? And then kind of how are we doing this? Are we doing it that we want it to be a nice congenial dinner party, or do we want it to be a really kind of boisterous dinner party, or a really kind of conflicting one in which there's lots of disagreement and argument and debate by people who fundamentally disagree with one another? Maybe we should have a theme for it, so maybe that would make light choices a bit easier. So if you pick a theme for your dinner party, who would be the people coming into that? Dawn says it's up to you. Right, okay, so Dawn, if it's up to me, I'm going to pick a theme for my dinner party. I'm going to say interested in a themed dinner party around the kind of the bigger, wider world. My kind of fascination with the ancient global world. People wanting to talk and discuss and come together thinking about the limits of the wider known world. And I will go across time and space. So I would like Megasthenes, my big favourite Seleucid ambassador who was sent to the court of Chandragupta Maurya in India in the 4th century BC and wrote the first history of India. I would like him there. Then I'd like Strabo, so from the 1st century CE, the guy who writes the Oikoumene, the kind of tour of the entire known world across his sort of 17 or so books. So I'd like him there because he knows an awful lot about the bigger, wider world. I'd like Mice Kiet Titianus, so kind of this guy Mice who was some kind of Macedonian trader in the early 2nd century CE, who seems to have sent his trading agents all the way through to the Pamir Mountains on the kind of borders of the Taklamakan Desert, and maybe they even went further into China, and then he got his reports back from his agents and then wrote a book about their travels, so he'd be pretty damn good to have there as well. I'd like to have the author of the Periplus of the Erythraean Sea, so that's a 1st century CE text about how to sail from, kind of coming out of the Persian Gulf from the west side of Africa across the Indian Ocean with the monsoon winds to the ports of India. There's an author of a guy who wrote that in about the 1st century CE, so I think that he would be great to have there. And I would like the Buddhist monk who came along with the Indian ambassadors to greet the Roman Emperor Augustus in around 22 BC, and he ended up with Augustus in Athens, and he was initiated into the Eleusinian mysteries with Augustus, and then promptly, in order to demonstrate his religion in return, burnt himself alive in front of Augustus and a bemused crowd of Athenian onlookers, and was then buried in Athens in a very famous tomb that they were still showing to people centuries later. So there we go. That's who I would have as my 5. Megasthenes, Strabo, Mais Kiet Titianus, the author of the Periplus, and the Buddhist monk who set himself on fire. Brilliant. Absolutely love it. Dawn's Darius, Sappho, Socrates, Cicero, and Antony, just to name a few. Absolutely. Teresa wants Alexander in there. I don't know. Do you think he'd be a bit of a kind of hogger of the conversation, I think, Alexander, wouldn't he? He'd be a bit kind of let me tell you about me and let's continue talking about me for most of the dinner. Dawn, brilliant question. Love the responses coming in. Fiona has got in touch. Fiona Graca. I hope I'm pronouncing that question, that name properly. Fiona Graca. How likely is the Iliad and Odyssey true to life regarding Troy? you went to see the Marvellous exhibition at the British Museum, but wondered about the actual reality of the stories themselves. Well, this is really interesting, Fiona, because we've also had a question along similar lines. Let me just kind of dig it up from where it is so that I don't lose it and forget that I've answered it. Here we are. Yeah, Matthew Turner was also asking about whether I could recommend any good research or literature around the ancient people of the Western Anatolian region, kind of thinking about that time of Iliad, Odyssey, Troy, etc. So Matthew and Fiona, I have a great book to recommend you that really takes us to task on what we can do to separate out the kind of the myth, the history, and the subsequent kind of iconic status of Troy and its peoples and the people of the region. And that's by a great friend of mine and colleague that I sort of did my undergrad with. We did PhDs together in Cambridge, and we've both kind of continued as classical scholars ever since, and that's Nisha McSweeney. And so Nisha McSweeney in 2018 published her book on Troy, kind of myth, city, icon. And I really think this is a fantastic book to kind of get around those different aspects of how Troy is understood, the lenses through which it's understood, and how we can then pull those apart and understand those. So I would definitely recommend you to go, Matthew and Fiona, to consult Nisha's book. Hello, Vilaya from Romania. Thank you so much indeed for tuning in. Brilliant to have you. Julia Mascal's been in touch. Did Greeks celebrate birthdays? Now, this is an interesting question. Probably not. The Greeks, no. They're not celebrating birthdays as in kind of their own individual birthdays. In fact, and we're going to come back to this because there's a question about birth later on. Kind of birth was quite a dangerous betwixt and between moment, both for the mum and for the child. So no, there is not the celebration of birthdays in the Greek world, although they do seem to have been interested in celebrating days given to sort of celebrate the sort of coming of power of certain gods, right? So kind of sometimes people claim that the sort of birthday cake with candles is a Greek invention in terms of the special cakes that they offered up to Artemis. In fact, birthdays, kind of, if the earliest we can sort of have some kind of indication on them is back in ancient Egypt. And that's thinking about the pharaoh, the Egyptian ruler, the pharaoh. But it's not celebrating the day of his birth as a human being. The birthdays that they celebrate in ancient Egypt seem to actually to be related to the days that they are appointed or anointed pharaoh, and thus simultaneously become some kind of god. So it's really their sort of birth as a god that's being celebrated as part of the birthday celebration that's then kind of repeated through time going forward as they sort of remember that moment when the pharaoh became a god of one form or another. Thank you very much indeed, Claire, for spelling out Nisha McSweeney for everyone. Brilliant. Yes, Troy, Miss City Icon. And we've had some other good recommendations for books coming in. So Natalie Haynes' new Pandora's Jar, absolutely fabulous. I was at the online launch event for that last week, and Natalie's done another stonking book for you to get involved with, particularly loving the translation. Not Pandora's Box. It was never a box. It was never a box. It's one of those kind of things where the ancient Greek stories have been completely misrepresented and re-represented over time to turn it box. It was actually a jar, a pithos jar. So there we go. We've all learnt one thing. Pandora's Box is a thing of modernity. Julie, you're asking about birthdays. Egyptians, kind of thinking about the gods. Greeks, not so much, possibly some celebration of their own gods. Romans, on the other hand, we seem to get a sense of kind of people did understand and think about their own birthdays as something which could be celebrated through time. And of course, particularly famous Romans kind of had big celebrations on their birthdays, and it all got very exciting and very kind of festive. And, there's an interesting kind of crossover with that, with the development of Christianity within the Roman Empire. Because, of course, Christianity has a difficult relationship trying to kind of both map itself onto some of the pagan celebrations in order to make it easier for people to convert to Christianity in the earlier centuries, the 1st through to 4th centuries CE, before the kind of official adoption of Christianity by the Roman Empire. But it also has to keep a certain distance between itself and kind of those pagan entities. And it's, of course, the way they kind of square this circle in terms of birthdays is suddenly thinking about the birth of a very important figure in Christianity, Jesus, which becomes Christmas, which is kind of overlapped onto a pagan celebration that was part of the pagan world. So that kind of you've got this kind of nice linkage through important birthdays and celebration of important birthdays. So Julie, thank you very much indeed for that question, and thank you all for getting in touch with your thoughts and responses. So if we take a quick break from the questions to, as ever, talk about some of the great things that have been flagged up that are going on and being revealed about the ancient world as we speak. And thank you also for doing this through your great community group that you are running with a great aplomb. Absolutely fantastic to see the number of members of the Professor Michael Scott Classics community group expanding rapidly, and the amount of discussion you guys are having is fabulous. I'm so pleased and proud of you all to see that developing and expanding. And Eddie Maxwell shared this with the community group page, and you can join the community group page through joining our page. So they run as separate pages, and the community group is yours to run and discuss the topics that you want to, and we kind of keep an eye on it in terms of making sure that everyone is kind of interacting in a really positive and enthusiastic way. So do have a chance to take up the chance to join that, as well as, of course, liking the Professor Michael Scott page. But Eddie Maxwell shared the fact that ancient Greek tomb has been found with gold, silver, and bronze, a Bronze Age warrior tomb in southwestern Greece. This is kind of absolutely fabulous, near the city of Pylos. Kind of is nice to see. And of course, this year we're also celebrating some great anniversaries, or sort of anniversaries. So if you remember back, we did a podcast with Greg Jenner on the Battle of Salamis, which is supposedly, according to the Greek government, celebrating its 2,500th anniversary this year, although it's not quite 2,500 years because there was no 0 BC. So actually, technically, we should wait to next year. But the Greek government's going to be very busy next year with the celebration of the Greek War or the anniversary of the Greek War of Independence. So they've put out new postal stamps this year commemorating 2,500 years since the battles of Thermopylae and Salamis. In the Daily Mail, and we're going to come back to this as well, from the Teutoburg Forest Massacre, where the Roman legionaries got absolutely massacred by the Germanic tribesmen. They found the armour of a Roman legionary, kind of where 3 legions were kind of wiped out. We're going to come back to this question as well in a second. You may have seen some of the beautiful videos that have been coming out of the new lighting, nighttime lighting display that's been done of the Acropolis in Athens, and that was launched this week. This has been absolutely beautiful to see. Such a stunning artistic creation to bathe the Acropolis, and particularly the Parthenon, in light at night to make it a real focal centre for the city, and the new display looks amazing. Anglo-Saxon warlord's grave has been discovered in Berkshire. This is Tracy Rabiotti who's been sharing this. Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Metal detectorists have scored big with another fantastic Anglo-Saxon find. And there's an new ancient Roman villa packed with rare mosaics that's been unearthed under a block of apartments on the Aventine Hill in Rome. So this is a very elite luxury Roman villa that has actually now ended up completely underground and was built over with a block of modern flats, which they've sort of finally discovered and kind of are now excavating. So this is absolutely brilliant. Not only are there beautiful mosaics, but oil burning lamps, a key, a hammer, a water tap, and a hairpin. And talking about Roman villas now, if I can flag a couple of things that are coming up in the near future for you, don't forget that next Thursday, which will be the 15th of October, I am giving a talk, a free talk online, sponsored in aid of Classics for All, the great charity here in the UK which raises money to make sure that school kids across the country, whatever school they go to, have access to learning about the ancient world. And I'm a trustee and director of Classics for All, and I'm doing an online talk for them which is about Roman DIY, home improvement and gardening. One of the things that we all saw during the lockdown was that DIY and home improvement sales went through the roof as everyone was engaging with their homes, and I'm going to ask the question of what did the Romans do with this concept? What can we see of Roman DIY disasters and successes at home improvement? So absolutely free to join up. do kind of, we'll put the link on the Facebook page as well, but you just need to register in advance through a website page, and that will then get you an email with the Zoom link. It'll be over Zoom to join the conversation. So kind of they've opened it up, they've managed to increase the number of seats available, virtual seats available, so there's lots of space. Please do come and join us next Thursday at 6 p.m. We're going to be kicking off for Roman DIY, and so I'll be talking for about half an hour, and then there'll be a half an hour or so discussion, so lots of chance for you to get your questions in and ask your questions over the live webinar as well, and we're really looking forward to having some fun with this topic. And I will even be revealing kind of how, after extensive consultation with my colleagues at the University of Warwick, our best possible Latin translations for do-it-yourself, home base, and B&Q. So tune in for nothing else but those. So what else is going on? So that was on the 15th of October, next Thursday, 6 p.m. Linda Montague's very kindly flagged up again in the community group that there's been a great BBC4 series recently, The Secret History of Writing, how writing and the ability to write and the kinds of writing we've done have influenced the story and journey of humanity. Great series, do have a look at that. Liz Gloyn, another colleague and friend of mine in the classical world who writes about monsters in the classical world, has done a great podcast for History Hack, so do have a listen to that. And we've already mentioned Natalie Haynes' new book, Pandora's Jar. Alexis, thank you so much for flagging that as well. And coming to Netflix, in October, there's an anime series called The Blood of Zeus. This is brilliant. So there's going to be a young hero. He's going to be called Heron. And after he's cast aside by his people, he learns he's the illegitimate son of Zeus. Now, he's not alone in that. As you may have seen on my Instagram at Prof we were sharing a great cartoon about the fact that kind of Zeus, well, frankly, I think in Greek mythology, about 114 to 17 illegitimate extramarital affairs he's said to have had in Greek mythology. So there's quite a few kind of illegitimate children of Zeus out there. Heron is not alone, but he has got to come forward in this Netflix anime to save the world from the demons that threaten to collapse everything. Will he be able to do it? Yes, he can. I think that's absolutely the case. And then this Saturday, if you are a school student, if you are thinking about wanting to do classics at university, think no further than the Warwick Classics Department, where I work with a whole selection of great colleagues. We have got a virtual open day this Saturday, the 10th of October, and also the following Saturday on the 24th of October. So kind of I'm going to be there talking and giving some taster lectures on the 10th of October this Saturday. So it'd be absolutely brilliant to see you there and join us, to meet the colleagues, hear more about the courses, do some taster lectures, and also see some of our students talking about why they feel classics is such an important subject to be studying right now. So could you come and join us? If you just go to warwick.ac.uk/classics, you'll find how to register for the event and get all the links. And we've been doing our training today on the exciting new online platforms of Bizzabo and Meet and Engage, which we're using for the online portal. So I'm looking forward to seeing you there. And lastly, on the 9th, on Friday evening, if you kind of need something to fill your Friday evening with, then look no further than the free online streaming of a 12-hour performance of Homer's Odyssey. Absolutely fantastic. They're going to use Emily Wilson's translation, the first kind of female authored, if you like, kind of translation of the Odyssey, which throws up really important ideas about kind of how we've sort of fallen into quite misogynistic in often cases translations of particular Greek terms and words and ideas in the way that we've put forward the concept of the Odyssey. They're doing a live performance of that. Books 1 to 4 go out from 9 a.m. On the LRB Bookshop YouTube channel. Books 5 to 24 will continue at 12 noon on the German Street Theatre YouTube channel and run until late into the night. And the entire reading will remain on the YouTube channels for a week after that. So do dig in. That sounds absolutely brilliant. Right, we've got some time for a couple more questions before we end our half hour. So thank you all for great questions coming in. Chris Ansey has been asking about the Teutoburg Massacre and about the discovery of the legionary with his armour, the remains of it. And his question is, how much did Roman armour weigh? And did soldiers wear their armour on their journey to the campaign sites, or was it carried, and if so, how? I know there's quite a lot of debate here. It's not a simple question to answer, because to a certain extent, armour in Roman literature has changed, kind of how much they were carrying, what they were carrying, depending on how long they were going on a journey for, depending on how much kind of food ration they had to carry. Also, it changed, it varied slightly as to how much they had to carry themselves. And that second question of yours, whether they were journeying to campaign sites, sometimes there was the opportunity for some of that weight to be carried for them, and kind of in wagons, etc. But actually, oftentimes they would be carrying it all themselves, and they were sort of totally kind of independent little unit, and they had everything from their sword and their javelin, their armour, their helmet, their shield, little dagger, but they were also carrying tools that they each had to use when they each had a role to play in building camp. So when the Romans kind of built camp for the night, they'd have each Roman soldier would also have a shovel to be able to start doing a bit of digging. He'd have his tent, to share between several people. So there were lots of kind of bits and bobs that they each carried individually to then help with the bigger community projects that they needed to do as a group as they moved across the landscape, not just the stuff for fighting. And the estimates are that the total weight would have been something between 30 and 45 kilos. Now, thinking about that armour, shield, helmet, weaponry, other gear that they had. So it's a pretty significant weight that they're carrying, and that they're learning to kind of build up the strength to carry and then march for significant periods of time, and then obviously fight on top of that. So it really was a pretty tough gig being in the Roman army. So Chris, thanks very much for that. Rebecca Tyerman, you're a teacher of classical civilization at Strode's College. Brilliant. Thank you so much for tuning in. You've been asked, talking with your students, about why in the Greek world is Odysseus known as Odysseus, but in the Roman world he's often referred to as Ulysses. So how does that kind of name change come about? Now this is interesting. It's very interesting because it's not just a direct Roman transliteration necessarily of a Greek into kind of Greek word into Roman letters, but there seems to be some quite complicated things going on here. Actually, Odysseus, we know him as Odysseus from the Greek world, but in the Greek world, within the Greek texts, surviving over quite a stretched period, there are quite a number of variants of Odysseus's name. And interestingly, actually from Magna Graecia, so that's Italy, southern Italy, the sort of area of Greek colonization over in the Western Mediterranean that expands from the Greek world and is created sort of from around about the 7th century BCE and onwards. The communities over there, some of the sources actually talk about not Odysseus, but Ulysseus. So they seem to have a sort of different name, or Odysseus as well. We also see variants of it. And it's possible that actually in early Greek myth, these were two individual different characters. There was Odysseus and there was Ulysseus. They might have actually been slightly different and then sort of amalgamated into one character as the myth forms and reblends and continues. That gives us our Odysseus. Or it may also be that those kind of minor variant forms, Ulysseus et al., are the ones that then, because that's in Magna Graecia over in southern Italy and Sicily, are the ones that feed into then Roman mythology, culture and literature. And it's much, much easier to see how Ulysseus gets kind of transliterated into Roman Ulysses. Other people argue that actually there's an origin for Ulysses in Etruscan culture as well. So this is kind of a really interesting and very difficult topic, but it points on the fact that Odysseus is not just as simple a character as Odysseus. Actually, he's got quite a few variant names and possibly a few different variant origin points as well for him as a character. So Rebecca, thank you so much indeed for that question. To end on Sarah Scotty's question, these days we use coffee to wake us up in the morning. What stimulant, if any, did the Romans use to get themselves going in the morning? Well, Sarah, they had no coffee or tea for that matter. No. Despite the fact the Italians are absolutely obsessed with coffee nowadays, as am I, to be honest. The ancient Romans didn't have any coffee or tea. What did they have? It was a fairly kind of reduced palate. It was water, milk, or sort of honey drinks as well, and then of course wine. lots of it. But wine, of course, that was, if you were in any way sophisticated and civilized, you watered down your wine and water mix. So that would be your choice to get you going in the morning. The famous Roman quote, "To be alive is to be awake." There was no hanging around in the morning. Roman bedrooms in Roman houses are not very pleasant places. They really are meant to be spaces just to sleep. And the moment you wake up, you're out of bed, and you're on with the day doing things. Kind of anyone who hung around in bed too long was thought to be a very lazy and unrespectable kind of person. So there we go. So no coffee to get you up in the morning, but kind of think about all that. Well, I don't know, possibly a glass of wine in the morning to get me going might well kind of lead to some rather odd taught classes, I feel, by the mid-morning and end of the day. Thank you so much all for your absolutely great questions that have come in. We didn't get a chance to talk about Alexis Brown's question about birth and childbirth, so I'm going to keep that over for the next time. But otherwise, we've got some more great questions to get to, and we will get to them. But it is going to be a little bit of a break time before we can have our next Q&A due to term hitting at Warwick and teaching like crazy. And because of the talk next week as well for Classics for All, we won't be able to get a Thursday in again until, remember, the 5th of November. So we're going through to the 5th of November, Thursday the 5th of November, 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. on the 5th of November, just before we all slip off for our bonfire night celebrations, hopefully, fingers crossed, with COVID, etc. et al. I will be here and we'll have a bit of a fire-themed Q&A. So send in your fire-themed questions, if you can, to the usual places, michaelscottacademic@gmail.com, or indeed direct to the Facebook page, Prof. MC Michael C. Scott. And I look forward to seeing you all soon. Take care of yourselves and stay safe, and we'll see you on the 5th of November. Take care. Bye-bye.